You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Thursday. You know what that means. That means it is time for the Michigan Mailbag. It might be last week's mailbag, but it is here. We are doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire. She does not listen to or watch this podcast that I know of, but we are going to start the show before we even get to the questions by me wishing my very favorite person, Sarah, a very happy birthday, because it is her big, amazing day. I want it to be recognized. So there it is. Anyway, let's get to it. Starting with our leaders and best. Again, remember, these were from last week because we are basically doing it every 2 weeks, but hopefully soon we'll do it every week. But James Crudup at James Crudup 6. It feels like if there's an elite kid in Ohio, it's almost a foregone conclusion he's going to Ohio State. Michigan has to fight tooth and nail to keep their in-state talent home. Do you agree, and why do you think that is? To some degree, yes, and also to some others, no. There obviously have been guys who have spurned Ohio State for other schools. Most recently, what's that kid's name? He's not even a kid. There was that Jackson Carman. Ohio State thought he was a lock. He was an Ohio guy, goes to Clemson. So, I mean, that's maybe anecdotal, but it does happen here and there. But yeah, it does seem like for the most part, there are a lot of guys that they end up going to Ohio State, even the ones where now it's not all the time. Kyle Kalis, obviously a famous case of someone who decommitted from Ohio State and flipped to Michigan. And he was, living in Ohio. I don't think he was an actual Ohio native, if memory serves. I'd have to ask him. But wow, kind of weird gasp there in the middle. Yeah, for the most part, yes, Ohio State does tend to get who it wants out of Ohio. Now, there are reasons for that and why Michigan isn't necessarily in that same spot. Big reason is Ohio State has the state essentially to itself. There's no other big programs in the state of Ohio. Michigan shares their state with Michigan State. Both schools recruit nationally, but yes, you do see that kind of being the case, though, where obviously we just saw CJ Carr go to Notre Dame. We'll see what happens with Dante Moore. But I mean, for the most part, when you look at the top guys in Michigan, Michigan's kind of gotten who they've wanted, and they've kind of cherry picked who they've wanted for the most part. There have been guys that have spurned Michigan for Michigan State, Will Golston being the one that's front of mind there. Other schools, obviously, I just mentioned CJ Carr. There have been guys where things have been kind of weird. Damon Payne, at Belleville being kind of that guy. Obviously, you also had Devontae Dobbs and Julian Barnett go to Michigan State briefly before ending up at Memphis. So, sometimes there's some extenuating circumstances, but for the most part, and I almost kind of want to look, James is always at the benefit of being the first every single week because I go on forever. I just want to see here if I can do this real fast, and I might not be able to. Doing like top players by state. Let's see if I can do that. All right. I think I can. So, using 24/7 Sports, Michigan's got the number 3 guy in this cycle in Cole Cabana. Jalen Thompson is looking like he's likely going to Michigan State. Michigan seems wishy-washy on him. Dante Moore is the big up in the air one. But I'm going to go back a little bit here. So, go back to, and of course it resets every time I change the year. The year before, you got Will Johnson. He goes to Michigan. They missed out on Josh Burnham, of course, who ended up going to Notre Dame. Alex Van Sumeren ended up flipping, but I know that wasn't necessarily, Michigan wasn't heartbroken on that per se. 2021, just to keep things going here, Damon Payne we spoke about, but then the player before or after is Donovan Edwards. Rocco Spindler spurned Michigan for Notre Dame. Again, Notre Dame's going to get some guys, but then they got Giovanni El-Hadi, Rashawn Benny, Raheem Anderson, Andrell Anthony. So, I mean, they got a lot of who they wanted there. And just to continue, the year before, Justin Rogers, Michigan again was a little bit on Justin. Ended up at Kentucky. I shot and edited his commitment video, actually. Braden McGregor, they got Andre Selden, Makari Page. They kind of, again, got who they wanted out of the class. Michigan's kind of been snipers when it comes to who they want in Michigan. And that was something that Alan True had said to me about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, in an interview that I did with him about recruiting, because we were talking about what we're going to talk about at the end of this show. The same thing is that Michigan's recruiting doesn't necessarily seem like it's right there where everyone wants, like at this point in the time in the year. And like he said, listen, Michigan is always kind of like picking and choosing the guys that they want out of the state. And that's kind of what they've always done. They did it back in Lloyd Carr. They did it back in, Bo Schembechler. And it's not, like, there's always this like feeling that Michigan was cultivating like these big classes of Michigan natives, and sometimes that's true if if there's really good talent. I think the best one that we can look at would be 2017, because like Alan had said, they always tended to get, like, if they're like, hey, we want like a Donovan Peoples-Jones, then that's who they go and get. Let's look at 2017. Number 1, DPJ, Michigan. Number 2, Ambry Thomas, Michigan. Number 3, Josh Ross, Michigan. Number 4, Darren Irving Bay, Michigan. Jalen Kelly Powell, Corey Malone Hatcher. You skip one, go to Antoine Simmons, then you got Jareemon Hall. Then you have to go down a couple to get Philip Paya. So, again, like, this is... It all depends. And the thing that it makes it feel glaring is because you've got these top quarterbacks. And you would think that, like, okay, you got a couple top quarterbacks, they're going to go to Michigan because they're from the state, and it doesn't end up playing out that way. Yeah, it feels bad, but it's not necessarily a problem. But we'll see how it plays out from here. All right, so you got like a 7-minute answer. Josh Barr at Jadiki. Sounds like her baseball coach is out to Clemson, with baseball being non-revenue, but it's starting to generate more interest at the school. How much should Ward fight to I'm rephrasing it because it was from last week, have Ward fought to keep him? Listen, they weren't going to be able to match Clemson. I know they were like basically tripling his salary or doubling or tripling his salary, and baseball just matters more down there. Look no further to like the other wire sites in the USA Today Sports Media Group. I almost never write about baseball because unless it's Eric Bakich leaving, nobody cares. The Tennessee site, Vols Wire, that's all they're writing about right now is baseball. Well, it was until they, lost. So, I just don't. It's like you said, it's not a revenue sport. You hope that they make a big hire, a guy like Chris Fetter, if he'll come, if they could pay him. If not him, I think Anthony Broom was floating Central Michigan's or Western Michigan's manager, coach, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't be surprised Brandon Inge ended up being the guy. So we'll see. Obviously, really good recruiting class if they can keep it. I don't know if it's signed or not. I'm ignorant of it, to be honest. Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner 1. What position group has the most future pros? He's got another question after that, but I'm going to stay with the defensive ends because every starting defensive end Michigan has had since I think before Jim Harbaugh arrived has been pro. Even sometimes that third guy. I mean, literally, let's go through it real quick. So Jim arrives in 2015. Harris, Chris Wormley, and Taco Charlton. And you can throw in some other defensive linemen, Willie Allen. It's those, so just defensive line, we'll just say. But all three end up being pros. You replace the defensive ends with Rashawn Gary, Chase Winovich. Again, and they're all high-end draft picks for the most part, too. That's the thing about it. So those two become pro. Aiden Hutchinson, Kwity Paye. It's basically, if you play starting defensive end at Michigan, you're going to be a pro player. That's just how it's going to go. David Ajabo, obviously, as well. So, yeah, to me, that's 100% it. And I don't think it's even close. Number 2, biggest trap game on the schedule. I'm back and forth in this because someone got me because they, like I said, it would have to be Illinois, because the week before Ohio State, we saw Illinois take down Penn State last year, and they also took down someone else. I can't remember who, but they're good for that every now and again, getting a couple. Obviously, they took down Nebraska in week 1, but they're good to get a couple. And it's the week before Ohio State. If Michigan's doing really well, very easy to let the guard down. So to me, that's number 1. But I do also kind of agree with those who have said that Maryland, because it's the first Big Ten game, it's, after 3 cupcakes, then you got Iowa in the next week. But I just don't think that they'll let up for that. I think they'll be up for Maryland. They know the challenge that presents. Number 3, who leads the team in TDs and sacks this season? I'm going to go with Blake Corum. No, you know what? I'm between 3 guys: Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, and Ronnie Bell. Part of me wants to go with a receiver. I'm going to go with Donovan Edwards because I think he'll get some running the ball, and I think he'll get some catching the ball too. But I could really see Ronnie Bell going off. I really could. I think Ronnie Bell is going to cement himself as a first-round talent. You can save this take for Old Takes Exposed. I think Ronnie Bell is going to cement himself as a first-round talent. I really do this year. KRTF Farmer 84, which backup quarterback, not Cade or JJ, will get the most playing time this year? I kind of want to go with Davis Warren. I think it's hard to not say Alan Bowman because he's got the playing time under his belt. I think that they're really impressed with Davis Warren. So that's who I'm going to go with. But don't be surprised if you see some Alex Orji, because I could see them trying to get him into some kind of rhythm, because I think that he can do a lot. Obviously running the football. I think you take what JJ can do running the football, and I think that element is upgraded through Orji, and that's just speculation. But I do think that he has that skill set. But I am going to stay with Davis Warren. Finishing us out in segment 1, a supersized segment 1, which we're downsizing the next 2. Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. Do you ever see Michigan doing what Ohio State just did and telling boosters how much they need for NIL to keep the roster together? And this can't be what everyone envisioned for NIL. I feel like it's crazier than the NFL. I don't think it is either, but I think it is. This is what I expected, to be honest. I don't know if Michigan will come out and say it outright the way that Ohio State did, but I'm sure those same conversations are being had. And now that they got the collectives together, Valiant's also doing its thing, and there's a bunch of stuff going on there. I think Michigan's it's a slow burn, but I think it's going to look pretty good. Plus, I think that they really like the fact that, and maybe to their detriment, that they're trying to get guys that doesn't matter. That's not the top line. And we'll see, bold move, Cotton. I guess how that goes. All right, let's move on. But before we do, you know how our friends at Built are always coming out with amazing new flavors? Well, this time Built has truly outdone themselves with their new Mud Pie flavor. And for the first time ever, Built is introducing the new Mud Pie flavor in both the Mud Pie Bar and Mud Pie Puff. Not sure what Mud Pie tastes like? Well, if you're a chocolate fan, you better sit down for this. The new Mud Pie Bar is rich whipped cream and chocolate mousse smothered in 100% real chocolate and topped with cookies and cream crumble. You've got to try Mud Pie as soon as possible, and you need to hurry because the Mud Pie Bar and Mud Pie Puff are only available for a limited time. Visit Built.com to taste the deliciousness for yourself. Not convinced? Luckily, we've saved the best for last. It's actually good for you. No, really. All Built products are low calorie, high protein, and low sugar. Mud Pie is packed with 16 grams of protein and only 150 calories and 8 grams of sugar. It's like your mom baked the most deliciously creamy mud pie, chocolate mud pie, and wrapped it up just for you. Mud Pie bars and puffs. We're not Colorado here, are available at Built.com right now, but they're going fast because they are delicious. Like all Built bars, they are covered in 100% real chocolate, which means they're healthy and tasty. And what's great about Built is all their bars are made from collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You're going to love the new Mud Pie bar, Mud Pie Built bar with Built Puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Chocolate mousse, whipped cream, cookies and cream crumbles. Stop drooling to get to the Built.com to order your box of Mud Pie bars and puffs now. You won't regret it. So that's Built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, we've got 4 question askers in segment 2, and I think 3 in segment 3. So, and 2 of them essentially have the same question. So, here we go. Jim at Jim in the North, with our current receiving core, is the loss of Worthy not that much of a blow? I'd say it isn't. Would it have been helpful? Absolutely. I think, the complexion of the team could have been a lot different in the sense even last year. But, yeah, this is the deepest I can remember a Michigan receiving core ever being, where it's like they just have so many guys that can be relied upon. And I'm really excited about the 3 freshmen. I've said it over and over and over again. I'm really expecting Darius Clemons to make an impact year 1, and I think that Amarian Walker and Tyler Morris more so year 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see them. And then Andrell Anthony has potential to be a special guy, and it's just, I could go through every guy. We did that in the wide receiver show, so it's so deep. It's the position group I feel maybe second most confident in. So we'll see. How is Elston at recruiting? He's a very good recruiter. You're starting to see that kind of work out with guys like Caden McDonald and McKeel Gardner, and we'll see. Etta is starting to get some crystal balls for Michigan after it was started to look. I don't have words. Like he was going to maybe go to MSU. He's long been an avid recruiter, but at the same time, he's not necessarily going to be like your top guy. But I think like once he kind of gets himself established as being a guy, as far as like what he does development wise in Ann Arbor in particular, he's off to the races. I'm mixing with my idioms right now. I don't know why my brain isn't working. Impressions of Obi-Wan. I'm loving it so far. I think it's a little underwhelming to some degree, but not in a sense of like I don't like it. I guess it's maybe wanted a little bit more spectacle to it, but I kind of like that you feel really close to the situation watching. I don't want to give any spoilers. I reserve that for Jamie Morris's show on the M Zone. Those are always fake spoilers, by the way, but I'm really digging it. I really wish that this isn't a spoiler, but like when he says like when he's touching the wall and he goes Quinlan. I wish that they would have Quinlan in it. My only real gripe with the show is still I don't like the Grand Inquisitor, the way he looks compared to like that's not how he's supposed to look, I know I just don't like I know people have gotten over it. I haven't. My friend Race to Canis at Almighty Ray. I've not been watching closely, so how is 2023 looking right now? Can they keep up what they did last season? I think he means 2022. I don't think he's talking about recruiting. Maybe he is. But I think that I think that Michigan's floor next year is 9-3. I think that's Michigan's floor. I guess 8-4 technically could be on the table. Lose to every big team they face, but I just think that the offense is so talented, and I think the defense is going to be good enough that I would be surprised if they lost to all four. Hence, I made it 9-3, and honestly, their floor is probably 10-2. I think the Michigan will probably go 11-1. It just depends on what that one is, and I think there's still a good shot for them to beat Ohio State. Michigan's offense still has all the components that bullied Ohio State's defense. For all the talk of like, oh, well, that Michigan lost all their defensive guys. Yeah, but they didn't lose really. Like, yeah, they lost Hassan Haskins. But guess what? If Hassan Haskins wasn't scoring those 5 touchdowns, someone else was going to. Because it wasn't Haskins that was necessarily bullying them. Michigan's offensive line dominated them. They dominated Ohio State in the trenches. And there's pretty much no reason to think that that's going to change. They bring in Jim Knowles, who, has a really good reputation in the Big 12, but he's stopping more of these pass-heavy offenses. We'll see what happens when he's playing man ball. Find out. I don't know that sometimes defenses can be fixed real quick. We saw Greg Madison do that when he came to Ann Arbor. In fact, we saw Mike McDonald fix what looked like a really bad defense that Don Brown had in his final year. But I don't know that it's going to be that immediate. So we'll find out. Tyler at T_Force1. Outside of QB and maybe Ronnie Bell, who do you think is the most important player for Michigan's offensive success this year? I mean, I'll probably got to go back to Donovan Edwards, but Blake Corum as well. I'm going to go with, honestly, I'm going to go with Olu. I think that he's having that continuity at center and maybe having that step forward means Michigan probably will be able to bully people up front. Because all it takes is 1 weak link, right? You can have 4 guys that are great on offensive line and 1 bad one. And I would think we already know all the other guys they have. I mean, we've seen 3 of them in action last year. And Trente Jones was right there, according to what they'd been saying. And obviously they tried to get him on the field as much as they could last year, but just had Andrew Stuber ahead of him. So, and while I think it would have been pretty good with Craig Crippen being the starting center, if it would have been the case, I think it's a little bit of a different thing. And I think I still am kind of like baffled because I saw go on to Athlon and I write for Lindy's as well. And in their preview magazines, they had Olu as being a second team Big Ten guy, which is also, we already knew that, but I think that's crazy. He was like the second best center in the country, and now you're saying he's the second best center in this conference? And especially when that number 1 center in the country isn't there anymore, which is Tyler Linderbaum. That's all I have to say to that. So I think Olu, especially because he can direct traffic, he can keep guys together. He's apparently got a real big mean streak in him. He can, do the protections on his own. I think it's going to be really good. Finishing us out in segment 2, Andrew at EngineNerd97. CJ Carr committed to Notre Dame, and things are very up in the air with Dante Moore. Do you think Michigan fans are right to be so concerned about recruiting quarterbacks when we have 4 years of eligibility left with J.J. McCarthy? No. I don't think Michigan fans should be that. They're clearly swinging for the fences with Dante. He's their only guy that they're chasing at quarterback in 2023. So they're clearly trying to do an every other year situation. I just don't, if they don't get him, then they're all signs right now are pointing to them getting Jaden Davis, the 5-star in 2024. By the time that he arrives on campus, chances are he'll get a year with JJ. Chances are. And then would be able to take over after that if he comes. But no, I'm not that concerned. Again, they're in it with him. They're in it with Dante Moore. I still feel like Dante Moore is going to come to Michigan. I think it's a very much like a Donovan Edwards, Donovan Peoples-Jones type thing where it's like when everything was said and done, that was just the right call, All right, we will continue on. A couple more questions left here in a moment. All right, we've got just 3 more question askers left. Parody here as far as segment length is not great. I'm critiquing myself, but, is what it is. Anyway, Nick underscore at Nick Fort 1100. Greetings, Isaiah, friend and fan here. Do you think JJ is good to go without the problem that held him out this spring from resurfacing? I know it's hard to ask, but I'm sure you hear things. Thanks, Nick. I think he's good to go. And obviously, if it was going to be so bad, they would have given him surgery. I don't think it was necessarily that bad to begin with. I think it was probably more of an uncomfortability thing rather than a dire need situation. It seemed like it was kind of in a preventative type situation. So, I'm not terribly concerned, to be honest. Good news is he's, if not him, then there's Cade, and not Cade, then there's him, vice versa. So that's the good news. All right, the last 2 are basically the same, and it's basically what the podcast was about yesterday, but we'll have at it again. Charles Myers at MGoMishFan. Again, remember these were asked last week, so it wasn't like they asked them, after I did a podcast yesterday. But hi, this is late, but what is up with our recruiting class this year? We currently sit at 31 on 24/7. There's 6 months to early signing day. Are we going to be able to make a run, or is this always going to be a lower class? And then Stu Gotts at X-Men 86, who is normally up in the Victor's Valiant segment 2, only here in segment 3 out of necessity. Isaiah, what's up with the recruiting? I would have thought they'd be killing it, beat OSU and winning the Big Ten handily. I know it's early, but still. 2023 probably wasn't necessarily going to have that big momentum shift. I feel like it takes a couple of years. And I know people are going to point to MSU, but I think that with MSU, it's more of less of a product of them winning last year and more of a product of Mel Tucker being in a second year of the job. And I think that's kind of how that goes. 2024 is the one I think where it's going to pay dividends. But like I said yesterday, this is how Michigan's recruiting goes every year. Every year. 2019, 2020, 2021, now. It's every year. It's this big lull, and then I would bet, and there's a couple different guys that Michigan's in for that decide on July 1st. Colin Zachiampong. I know there's another one, I can't remember offhand, that's also deciding on July 1st. I would bet that either leading up to that or starting then and going forward, it's going to be, you're just going to start seeing guys dropping. And this class is going to go from 6 to 15 overnight. That's how it's going to go. So no, I'm not concerned. This is just how it goes every single year. If it wasn't, then okay. If Michigan kept on trying for different guys and then they end up committing elsewhere and just so close, then I'd be concerned. But pretty much everyone Michigan really wants in 2023, still on the table, still on the board. That's the big thing, right? You can sit there and say, hey, MSU's landing all these 4 stars. Okay, great. The guys that Michigan wants, for the most part, not entirely, of course, are still on the board. That should tell you something, right? They haven't decided yet. And I know that everyone kind of wants it to be they just picked Michigan. They were super excited. It's not just how it always works. It's not like I've said a million times over with recruiting. A lot of fans have this idea as if it's the kid, once Michigan offers, the kid knows what he's going to do, and it's just up to us to coax it out of him. It's not the case, right? Think about any big life decision that you've had to make. Sometimes you have to weigh on, sit there and think. I remember when I took Wolverines Wire, when I took this podcast, I didn't take either immediately when it was offered to me. I actually almost lost the podcast because I took a month to think about it. So it's that's sometimes just how it works, how the world works. All right, we are running out of time. The camera battery's no, not the battery, the tape. That's right. The memory card shuts off at 30 seconds, 30 minutes. See, can't talk. This is why we're ending it. All right, thanks for watching and or listening. We'll be back on Friday at some point. It might be a late one, as if this one wasn't late enough. It's 8:37 as I say this. But anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.